Let me ask you about your engraving work.
Okay.
First of all, let's go to something simple. Why is it called engraving when in fact you're not engraving?
Well, it's just a holdover. At one time, someone actually did sit and engrave a printing plate. Well, the dark ages have passed. For a while, there was a horrible little typewriter where you could sort of type music.
Right.
Again, the manual typewriter gave way to the electric typewriter. For a while, there were little rub-on transfers where you could actually line things up, and it was like those little rub-on letters. Fortunately, that passed.
Absolutely horrible.
That passed. I can't imagine doing.
Yes. Right.
Even simple music has lots of notes, and I cannot imagine doing a whole orchestra's worth of rubbing on. I actually have had fairly decent music penmanship, so just with a pen and music paper. The advent of the computer has made that not true. It has killed my music penmanship because now, like Finale is a note processor. I can sit and literally type on just a computer keyboard and notes appear on screen, or I can play in on a electric keyboard,
sure,
and the notes appear on screen, and then you just do a little editing, you set margins, and just make the layout the way you want it. That's why it was originally engraving. It really was. It is anymore.
And besides the notes, there are all the subtle markings, aren't there?
Well, sheet music it's a symbolic language, and musicians are trained to read those symbols. You have to work in such a way, format your work in such a way that it looks the way people expect. If it's laid out poorly on the page, it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause problems playing it. It's going to cause problems rehearsing it. You want to take out all the ambiguity you can. You want it to look as standardized as you can. You want people to say, oh, this is music. I can see what it does. That's not saying there's not room for creativity or expression or good design, just like any kind of typography.
Right. But there is a strictness there because you have from 1 to 100 musicians all lining up at the same moment.
Exactly. You have to. The fewer things you can put in a musician's way when they're reading music, the better. And that's not saying things must be simple. Much music is not, but you have to present it as clearly and unambiguously as you can. A few people have said, why do you spend so much time working on getting this saxophone music laid out right? I make the joke, saxophone players are very simple. But in a way, that's true. You don't want to have to think about sheet music when you're reading it, and that goes for anybody.
Exactly.
I mean, imagine you're a piano player and you have to puzzle something out. No, that's...
Does he mean this? Does he mean that?
No, you can't do that. You have to see and do almost instantly.
Exactly.
And that's why I take the time when I'm laying out a piece of music to reformat as many times as necessary. And
do you find sometimes you've gone through, 20 pages of an orchestral piece, and then all of a sudden you say, this is not working?
This is not, many times. Many times. It would be different if I had written the music and I knew what was coming.
Exactly.
So really what you have to do is you have to take whatever score you're looking at, and you have to process it and sort of proofread it, so you know what's about to happen. You have to make allowances for all the things that are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Different scores are laid out in different ways. Some scores might start off with one little staff
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, and then by the end of the piece, or 24, 26, who knows how many individual lines. And that's easy enough to set up in finale, but if you
don't know what's coming,
exactly,
Right.
there's a
Right.
pothole there, you are
Yeah.
going to fall into it.
all of a sudden in measure 300 there's a soloist, you know.
Oh. Yeah, it's 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 a lot easier now that it's computerized, because you can insert and you can reformat pages. Before, when you had to do this by hand, if you found a mistake, you were either stuck with it, or you could literally cut and paste. You would cut the paper, paste it onto a bigger piece,
Mhm.
and then put your new staves in there. No one has time for that now.
And what are the extremes from readability to illegibility have you encountered
Oh,
of
Well-
a manuscript?
well, some of it there have been some manuscripts I've just thrown my hands up in despair almost, because I can't read what this says. It's faded. It's been closed up on itself for so long that notes have transferred from page to page. Some things I have put down and come back to later when I found a different edition, to fill in the blanks, but on the opposite end of that, there are some composers who have a really beautiful finished manuscript hand, and I'm almost thinking as I'm setting this, it's like, why does this need to be input into the computer and laid out? Well, of course, it's for archival purposes, for publication, distribution, of course, you know why. But you look at the music that literally flowed from the composer's pen, and it's just, this is beautiful. But then then you turn the page and it's like, what in the devil is that?
Right.
So maybe computer's better for some things.
Well, and that really brings us to what we have been working on together for the last couple of years.
Mhm.
As many people know, 2021 season was the 100th anniversary of the founding of the original Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. And the music director and conductor was my great uncle and my teacher and mentor when I was young, Enrico Leidi, who lived in Atlanta, and his second wife was Lucy Candler, and he really started the orchestra, and it ran until 1945, when 1940, I think, when the war started. And anyway, I wanted to play a couple of Enrico's pieces, and I only had photocopies of manuscripts that someone, a young lady at the time, Marjorie Deere, recently gave to me, and I passed that out to you and asked if you could engrave it. And
Yes.
you said sure, and you did. And then I received two cases of music, which I'll take a picture later. Actually, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, almost 10 cases of music, some of which were not original compositions, but of Enrico's brother, Manoa Leidi Tedesco, commonly known as Tranquillo, and he was a very prolific composer, and several of his pieces were played by the Chicago Symphony, who actually held the world premiere of a couple of his pieces. And so I came to you, and we took a couple of pieces.
We started with For Harvest Time, actually, because it was important to get that done, because we were going to do that in the fall. Well,
Yeah. COVID took that.
in the before times.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and that was one of the pieces that it's the score itself is lovely the way it's laid out, and the individual parts are beautifully written, but an odd size, so it made sense to reformat that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say there were some page turns. That's a particular bugbear for me. If anyone ever plays a piece of music that I write, it's going to have sensible page turns.
That's really something that most musicians don't think about, the process of getting to that point. I know a lot will complain if it's bad.
Oh, it's easy to complain about it.
But I had not really thought about engraving that way with that in mind.
Well, it's just a practical thing.
Sure.
Certain instruments you can play and turn at the same time. Certain instruments you can't. And I predominantly worked with, again, saxophone music, and it's a it's a two-handed instrument. If you don't have a measure or two where you're not playing, or where there's a reasonable page turn, you have to have extra pages stuck on your stand.
Exactly.
That's a mess. We can't have that on stage.
So you transcribed actually two pieces, I think. It was also Asturias
Yes, yeah.
at that point, which the AMO was going to play, and has already begun rehearsals before COVID, and we'll pick that up again. And I think the music was pretty beautifully written, handwritten. It was very legible, I think.
Yes, both. Well, I'll say this: most of the sometimes a composer will write the music down, and it's all in a flurry, and there's just no telling if you can unravel that or not. But most of Tranquillo's fair copy scores are really beautiful things. Even the complex piano music just comes right off the page.
Right.
It's I almost felt guilty, engraving it. But again, there are reasons for that. There are reasons for putting it in a modern format.
Right. Well, and besides the piano music, the orchestral pieces, pardon me, the orchestral pieces have to then have the parts separated out, which is going to be, impossible from a manuscript without a massive. And so, by engraving it, then finale will pretty automatically.
That's where the automation that Finale has built in is really convenient. You can choose a menu item, edit score, and there's all the staves of all the instruments. Or you can choose an individual part, and you can edit the piccolo, you can edit the second violin, the viola, whatever. And it's on screen, you see what it's going to look like. And the convenient thing is you can change a part without changing the score, as far as the layout or the formatting goes. Because oftentimes you want a score printed at a large size that would be inconvenient for an instrument part. And so you can format the score one way, and you can format the parts a different way. And this is where computerized engraving really comes to the fore. At one point, you would have had to write out the score and then go back and literally copy out the parts, hence the name music copyist. And you would have to handwrite all those parts. No one wants to do that anymore.
What I found in some of the original manuscripts of Tranquillo were this size negatives, reversals, which I take it were used for photographic printing.
Yeah, that was the common way to do it. And with Finale, in some printing methods, you still work from a negative, but
You can reverse it now.
And Finale can put out a reversed score to begin with, and you can do a whole production process.
Right.
if necessary. What I've done for you with all the things that I engraved was to make a fair copy of the score and parts, if necessary. If it's a piano piece, obviously, you
Right.
just have the piano score. And then I did individual parts, and I was able to do audio as well.
Right.
And that's something that a paper score
Yeah.
would never do for you. It's now the synthesized audio is nowhere near as rich and complex as a live performance would be. But I have to say it was really fascinating to enter this music and then be able to be the first person to have heard it in 40 or 50 years.
Forever.
In some cases forever, but it was just like Christmas hearing some of this stuff. It was fantastic. And to be able to send you the audio too. And
Well, and that made such a difference for me too, you know, to be able to hear what was going on. And I have to say, anytime you had a question or several questions, you would send me lists of
Yes.
questions, and we would go over them and try and, you know, sometimes when I had several copies of different manuscripts of the same piece, and we'd look through them, and there was the Italian, and one
I'm
little
still learning.
Well, one little story though was when neither you nor I could figure out this, you know, this one person, you know, that was dedicated to it. And my father knew who that woman was who was dedicated to. He didn't say anything more, but he did tell me.
Sometimes it's best to not
That's
ask.
right, exactly. But it was just, I have to say, it was such a glorious period for me, I mean, over these 2 years to work with you.
It was a delight. I was actually able to go deeper into orchestral music than I ever had before. But I've kept that up now because I've started doing other transcriptions and other engraving work, and it's just been a joy. I can't wait to actually hear the music performed by real musicians. As I said, the audio is nice, but it's not real.
Right. Well, as soon as we get back on our feet, let me come for one of our rehearsals for Asturias. And, what was your favorite piece of all of those you trying to
Oh, golly. What was my favorite? I think the oboe sonata.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was very taken by that, and I still want to talk to you about that doing a transcription for soprano saxophone.
Sure.
It plays very, very nicely.
Go
But
for
I
it.
didn't, well, at the time you said
Yes, yeah.
You said wait, and I understand you have publication in mind, and you're working with a publisher to move forward with all this, and that's more complicated than it needs to be on a good day. Never mind having a spare edition of a transcription running around. So we'll wait,
Hopefully soon.
and it'll be worth the wait. But actually, the first piece is a showstopper for harvest time. I didn't really know what to expect, and it's just this a whole panoply of textures and sounds, and it will be fantastic to bring that back to life.
I'm hoping we can do it in the next couple of years. It takes a big orchestra too.
It does, and
some of his pieces have 4 harps. And,
that's yes, but I learned more about writing for harp than I ever wanted to
yes,
know.
that's right. Yes, we had that discussion about
Yes.
pedaling and so on.
Oh, well, I don't write bad harp parts, I've found out now, and I learned. And that's one reason I was interested in doing it. I didn't realize how deep it would take me into the orchestra.
Right.
And I knew a little bit about technique for different things, but it was really like a class in orchestration and instrument technique. And It was just a treat to go through.
Well, and I have to say, you're not one to sort of go, well, this will do. You are such a perfectionist.
Oh.
You know, I called several people for advice at your request, you know, for different things. And,
Mhm.
you know, you wouldn't stop till we had.
The string quartet is so immaculately marked up that there's no reason to ask anybody about anything. That couldn't be clearer. And I was like, really? Every single note? Every single note has an articulation or a comment on it. And it needs it.
Yeah.
And so, no, that needs no further clarification.
You know, the comments, I was just looking at that score that you and I looked at now of Asturias, the
Mhm.
manuscript. And, you know, throughout all his different versions of manuscripts, he had innumerable comments. And it really sort of makes you feel and understand the human being.
Oh yeah,
person.
yeah.
Person.
And not so much the big pieces because I didn't have so many working editions, but with the smaller pieces, the piano pieces, I had several versions to look at, and you could just see the music happening on the page, and where things would be scratched out and written in, or scratched out in these notes, and it's like I had to get my Italian dictionary out. And it's like, what does that say? And the pieces that really show the most of that are the few pieces that are unfinished,
Right.
that he never
Interesting.
got around to crossing out all the comments or making a fine copy that didn't have all the comments. And so it's really interesting to see. That's a good place to look to see his thought processes, and
Right.
sometimes there'll be chords or there'll be a little analysis here and there, and it's like, oh, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But you don't see that in a final copy or in sheet music. So I feel like I got a very privileged behind the scenes look,
Yeah.
and I'm just endlessly grateful for being involved in this.
Well, I thank you. I mean, that was a chunk of work over a couple of years, and it brought to me one of my great uncles that I did not know. Well, in fact, I knew all of his brothers and sisters
Oh,
very
okay.
well, and yeah, it was important to me in many ways. And I think to bring out his and Enrico's, you know, he didn't compose much, but both of their music, it's important. And
Mm-hmm.
it's Enrico was a teacher of mine for both piano and conducting.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was important in the history of Atlanta.
Oh, sure. With founding the first iteration of the ASO, yeah.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you my infamous last question.
Oh,
When one day you're up at the pearly gates, what would you like to hear St. Peter say to you, Robert?
oh. Well, let's see. Don't think about mortality often, so. Oh, let's just go for the generalist sort of idea. Not bad.
Bad.
Not bad. A little rocky around the edges to start with, but it got better. And really, that I would like anybody that's known me for any length of time to say that.
Well, I am not St. Peter, but it's much more than not bad.
Oh, good.
Your work is beautiful.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. It's really nothing I expect people to see or know about. Many people do this kind of work, and nobody expects their name in lights or in a program. It's just one of those behind the scenes jobs.
Yes, you're right. It is an invisible job in many ways, but you know, over the years we've had the beginnings of urtext and more precise engraving, and it's become important.
Yeah, it
and
has.
recognized me.
And so many composers use a notation program like Finale. There are some others too, but that are as good. They do it themselves, and well, they don't always do the best job.
Right.
And sometimes maybe it's enough to write the music. You don't have to, put it on the page to make it perfect for everyone to play. So it's a distributed effort.
Yeah.
Some composers are absolutely fantastic with it.
Mm-hmm.
Others are less so.
Not so.
And I think that's all I'll say on that, because I don't want to.
Well, if you pardon the pun on that note,
Yes.
I thank you so
And down.
Thank you so much.
Donklin, it's been a pleasure.